Now people can hear me. I keep forgetting. You got to press one button before you press the next button. Now you can all hear me. Welcome to round two. If you were here earlier, quick update. Grandbaby lives 2 streets over. Got a frantic text message. She fell. Wrist is dangling. She won't move it. She's screaming her head off. I need you to go check. So ran over there. It ended up being okay. I think she just sprained it. She's almost 2. Toddlers do all kinds of crazy things. The great thing about her living close, also equally probably the negative thing, I got to run over there and help. But everybody's fine. We're good. She's good. We're back. We're going to see if we can put a polishing touch on this. Thank you, Trey, for being willing and patient. Thanks, everybody, for being understanding. Real life happens. I appreciate you. Thank you for all the messages. All right, we stopped on the NFC North, so that's where we're going to pick it up. You got your Lions sitting at 2-0. Vikings at 1-0. Yes, way to go. New owner. Vikings picking up a win. Dragons, formerly known as the Chicago Bears, 0-2. We'll touch a little bit on that. Packers at 0-1, only scoring 8 points in week number 1. I'm going to start this one off, and then I'm going to go to you. This is a division with a lot of what ifs, what might happens. I would just say I don't think... Initial thoughts on the Dragons are, I think the move is great. I think the fresh start's great. New quarterback. He looked really good about 3/4 of that game in week 1. And then some real life things happen that may take him out of the season. I don't know. He's still going to play his games. It's his business, none of our business. I'm just putting it out there that like we may not see the best of that team this season as he figures out some real life things, as I had to do just a few minutes ago. I can never quite put my finger on Priest, but if I were to say anything about Priest, I just think he is... The OMFL is low on his list of priorities. He plays in a lot of leagues. I don't think that he really cares to compete. I could be totally wrong. It's just the vibe that I'm getting. This Madden, he just wants to play and he doesn't really care. And so as long as the Packers aren't trying to compete and the Dragons are dealing with real life things, I think it really just comes down. This is the Lions division, and can the Vikings turn things around? Brand new owner, number 1 draft pick, brought in a whole slew of talent. He hung 45 points on his week 1 opponent, so that's pretty good, but he did give up 37. There's a lot to be unfolded here. I don't think any of these teams below the Lions are actually going to compete for a wild card. All Lions, all the way. Somebody else is going to have to show me something. How do you see your own division playing out?
Yeah, obviously I very chalked in my first game with now the Dragons, and it looked bad. Obviously, you got some sort of stuff going on, which hopefully works out for him that he can get back to being focused in. But I definitely
100%.
think not being able to fully focus in because of the outside stuff is definitely affecting his game and whatnot. Priest is obviously very hit and miss. If he's going to be the Priest that contends, or if he's going to be the Priest that we've all come to love and know. Bill in NY is obviously, a new owner. He's got a very interesting schedule ahead of him. I just looked at. He starts off with a long road stretch. He's got 6 of his first 7 games on the road, so that might pay out. And with everybody's thought on the momentum inside the game being a thing, and then you got me. I essentially had to rebuild both my wide receiving and corner cores this offseason, and I think I did that pretty efficiently so far. But yeah, obviously until we learn a little bit more about Bill in New York and if Hurt's going to be able to check in fully to this season, I definitely think I'm the favorite to run away with the division again.
Kevin, thanks for asking me. I gave a quick update as we got going here. I think she's going to be okay. I'm not a doctor, but I went and checked on her and spent, the last 20 minutes, 30 minutes with her. She's fine. I think just sprained her wrist. She's moving it. She's squeezing hands. She's picking herself up with it. I think she's going to be okay. Just was an initial knee jerk of like, oh my God, I think we broke this thing and somebody needs to come help. So I think we're going to be okay. My question before we move on to the next one, Trey, is just about the quarterback situation. I mean, you had Hendon Hooker. You won a lot of awards with him. You were looking great with him. I mean, he won all kinds of stuff, and then there looked like you wanted to make some moves and move away from him. What was the hesitation around Hendon Hooker?
75 overall and 26 years old. It's not much room to navigate and improve. So it was, if I can get a younger, better version, why not?
Let's move over to the AFC. Oh, no. Before we move to the AFC, let's finish talking about the NFC. We've kind of given some of our winners and people that we think may win their division. I even tossed out that I think the wild card, both of them are going to come out of the West. Who's representing the NFC in your early, way too early predictions in OMFL Bowl number 107?
I'm going to say it will be the division representatives will be Niners, Bucks, Cowboys, Lions, with the 3 wildcard spots going to the Giants, Seahawks, and Cardinals.
Who gets all the way to the bowl game?
Depending on the timeline, that might be around Christmas time, which means D-Money be away, which means I'm going to say, just because of the uncertainty of the timeline of where that playoff would line up, I'm going to say Dean Wayne is my all-around, because he's going to be there no matter what.
I'm just going to mix it up for mixing it up's sake. I'm going Seahawks. Give me the Seahawks in OMFL Bowl number 107. Big victory against the Jets this week. He's going to carry that momentum. We're going to have a couple guys go on vacation, check out for the holidays. I like Meek going all the way. All right, now let's dig into the AFC. Let's start with the AFC West. Chargers at 1-0. I've got him up next. Broncos at 1-0. A big victory last night against the Atlanta Falcons. Raiders at 0-1. Chiefs at 0-1, and kind of getting it handed to him pretty well there after a great season last year. How do you see the AFC West?
Pepper's always been a contender if he can put the team around himself. I feel like this offseason he kind of sat back and repositioned his thought process and changed things up to more fit his style for this season. I think he's obviously going to be the front runner for me to win the division, but Shocks showed last year that, and quite frankly the last few seasons, that he can contend. You know, rough start week 1, but he also had a rough start week 1 last year, and he ended up winning the division. So it's not to say that he can't pull it out. Broncos obviously getting off to a good start. He needs to be checked in. When he's checked in, he's obviously another one that's running for the division. He hasn't really fully been checked in, I think, the last few seasons. That'd be nice to see him fully in. And then Bulls, he's always on the cusp of things. He come out losing records, but it's like he's losing 1-score games the majority of the time. So it's really just a flip of a coin. He could be also a front runner in the division. I think Pepper's finally on a point with the Chargers roster that he's going to make that push to solidify himself as the division winner.
Broncos, Raiders, new quarterbacks, and I think that makes all the difference for both of those coaches. I do like what you're seeing out of the Chargers. He's got Herbert. He's got a lot of talent there. You said it well about Shocks. He stumbled out of the gates last year and still was able to win this division. One of the most open-ended divisions that anyone can step up and compete, and I hope all of these guys go at it. I hope all these guys just beat each other up, and not in a negative sense, but in a sense that they're all competing and they're all trying to win this division. And I hope this one comes down to the last couple of weeks of the season. I'm going to have to pick the Chiefs because he's shown it for several seasons in a row, but I do think the Raiders, Broncos are going to be competing. New offenses, new quarterbacks. The Chargers have definitely turned the corner here. Look for him to continue to try to build on this. I really like this division. I think it could be a fun one. Give me the Chiefs to win it, but I hope these coaches go at it all season long and end up coming down to just the last couple of weeks before we get to the end here. As As my computer says, oh, I don't like what you just did there. Don't do that again. All right, next we got the AFC East: Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Patriots. Bills at 1-0, Dolphins at 0-1, Jets at 0-2, and Patriots at 0-1. If you were to tell me halfway through week number 2 that this division would be a combined 1-4, I'd be like, there's no way. There's just absolutely no way. Dolphins figured some things out late in that season. The Jets were in OMFL Bowl number 107. The Bills are always tippy top there. And, well, the Patriots invested very heavily into free agency and bringing in veterans. There's no way that's going to happen, but that is where we find it. And if you look at the points for and against, some of these games are just like a little lopsided and a little all over the place. What do you think about the AFC East? Not a great showing here halfway through week number 2.
I think we're all sitting back here going, how is Kobe 0-2 and how has he been doubled up in points? That's not what we saw all of last season. A team that went 16-1, made all the way to the bowl and lost by 10. That's quite a shocker, but it's now falling into the 2-hole gap that he's in. That's not looking positive. And I think that's just opened the door wide open for the guy that's always been nipping at his toes the entire time and eats up a wild card spot. I think that's going to give Bill the opportunity to win the division.
Yes to everything you just said. The wild card for me is the Dolphins. And I said it several times. I think I did vote for him to win one of the awards, his quarterback. I did put his quarterback as the backup quarterback in the AFC Pro Bowl. But I would say the Dolphins just threw too many interceptions. And if he could somehow figure that out, just cut that number in half, his team could be a 12, 13, 14 win team and be competing here in the AFC. I do think it's the Bills division. The Jets, I don't understand. I mean, he told us on the draft show, I got to rebuild. I'm going to be starting a new quarterback. I'm going to be doing some different things. Kobe figures things out quickly. I'm shocked he hasn't already figured them out. He is that quick. He is not in so big of a hole that he can't dig himself out of. I think the Jets, Dolphins are the wild cards here. Patriots, I'm constantly pulling for Lost. Like, Lost is my brother from another mother. He is my dude. Like, I want to see him get that team rolling. I just question the heavy influence of free agents and older players. It definitely was a direction to go in, and it's not too late for him to turn things around. Week 1 is a weird week, man. You just come straight out of the draft. You go straight. You don't get to warm up with your team. You don't get to practice. You don't get to figure. You're figuring things out live with real bullets, and that's hard. I would say give me the Bills to win this division. But, man, I don't feel comfortable about any of it. I don't feel comfortable about the division winner, about wild cards coming out of here. I think you could see anything from all 4 of these teams beating each other up to the last couple of weeks to 2 wild cards coming out of here to just one team winning the division and no one else. All kinds of things could happen in this division. Hopefully it's going to be a really fun one. Let's go over to the AFC South. I think what could be one of the more confusing divisions to figure out because you just never know what we're looking at here. Titans at 1-0, Condors at 1-0, Jaguars 0-1, Texans 0-1, and the Texans, I think, Texans, Titans, Jaguars. I would put all 3 of them in sort of the same bucket, but we constantly talk about what ifs with all 3 of these teams. What if Rodgers, health allows him to plug in because we know what he can do. We know what kind of coach he is. We know what kind of guy he is. What if the Jaguars get all that talent to come together? What if Truth is able to get that quarterback situation figured out? What ifs, and because of that, it's all Condors all the time. And then somebody else is going to have to show me something before I think anything else comes out of here. Constantly pulling for my guy, the Texans and Raj, but they got a lot to show me. And week number 1 didn't answer any of those questions for me. What do you think about the AFC South?
Yeah, it's definitely until somebody proves that team is beatable. I think the Condors are going to take the division. It's nice to see Truth put up a defensive output versus the Packers. 8 points. It's pretty impressive, especially given Priest's ability to find ways to score. He can find a way to score offensively, defensively, and even sometimes on special teams. and hold them to 8 points is a job well done. Jaguars, obviously, going into a game where you're going up against the unknown with Bill in New York, put up 37 points on the Vikings defense. That's fairly decent, especially after getting, a bunch of off-season moves. And then Raj, we all know if Raj can check in, he can compete for the division. That's just circumstances. I think Condors take the division, but I like what I'm seeing from Truth that, it's 1 week, but he's showing that he's finding a different aspect of the game because he's always had the offense. He's never really had the defense to keep it up with it.
AFC North. Tell me that I'm wrong here, but if we just talked about owners, now I know that we have to take a lot into the context of what I'm about to say, and maybe history isn't on the side of all of these teams, but if you just took overall history and context of ownership from start to finish, the AFC North may be one of the more loaded divisions when it comes to championship coaches that this league has ever seen. Nipples and the Ravens, Denbrew and his Bengals, Little Koch and the Browns, and then Cincyberg and the Steelers. Multiple championships here. I think just off the top of my head, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think right off the top of my head. I don't know that that's 100% correct, but it's got to be pretty close. A very loaded AFC North, but we haven't seen all of these teams put it together all at the same time, and that would be my hope for this season. You got the Ravens at 1-0. Bengals at 1-0, Browns at 1-0, Steelers at 0-1. Steelers are bringing a little bit of that maniac energy. If he thinks his season's already over after week 1, sliders are an issue. I don't believe any of that stuff. He'll get it figured out. He'll get his team figured out. It's just week 1. We didn't get any practice. Your team changed. Everything changes. You got to get yourself a little bit of time. He had a bit of a hole. He got his quarterback later in the season last season. He got on a roll. He got all the way where he wanted that team to be, almost getting to the very pinnacle, just falling barely short to the New York Jets. This is a fun division. Tell me, though, who do you think is going to win it?
It's a hard thing to figure out. We know I checked in Nipples is a top-tier team. And he showed to be checked in versus the Steelers. And, 30 points against that defense is pretty impressive. And holding Cincy to 14 points is, I think, even more of a shocker. I think that goes by a lot of the betting on that game. A lot of people just instantly went Steelers to cover the line, and they didn't even win the game. And then we got Little Koch and Denbrew and their trading of Bengals and Browns. They seem to find, whether which team it is, they seem to find their groove. It's very much a hard division to figure out, as you were mentioning. I want to put in favor of Denbrew in this scenario, because since his mindset's going to definitely play a factor, and Nipples has that whatever cruise he's going on soon. So
yeah,
I think that's going to take him back a little bit in the division, and I just don't know if Koch is going to be able to stay shot for shot with Denbrew. But I think he definitely has a chance to be in the wild card spot.
Yeah, I would have to lean to. My heart wants to pick the Bengals just because I think it's time. We've seen him not get there in a couple of different seasons. But, man, the Steelers have been impressive, both what he did in Indianapolis in the last season before moving to Madden 24 and then what he did this past season. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Steelers just because I want my money to be where I think the best percentage is. But the Bengals are going to be right there. Browns are going to be right there. Let's see what happens with Nipples and the Ravens because of his cruise and how long he's really gone and not gone. I don't know you never know with Nipples, how much of that's a joke or not a joke, or reality or not a reality. Bengals are a team to be reckoned with, but so are the Steelers, and he just does so much with so little. I think that is going to be the team that wins it, with the Bengals getting a wild card. Browns are going to be right there battling for it at the very end. Tell me, though, out of the entire AFC, who do you have making it all the way to OMFL Bowl number 107?
I'm my division winners. I'm taking the Chargers. I think I said I was going with the Bills, the Condors, and I'm going to put the entirety of the AFC. I just feel like that's going to happen. In terms of my favorite, I think this is going to be the year that Bill Shaw finds himself dancing into the OMFL Bowl. I really think he's starting to put the puzzle pieces together. Getting 3 sacks in his opening week with Ed Oliver, showing that the pass rush is there, and coming from the interior is just going to cause a lot of havoc for a lot of people.
This is always tough. There's so many what ifs. There's so many maybes. There's so many teams that are going to be right there battling it out. But I'm gonna pick with my heart here. I'm pulling for the Bengals. I think Denbrew is going to get back on that track. He's going to get back to those winning ways. He's going to get his team all the way to OMFL Bowl number 107, and he's going to represent the AFC in that game against whoever ends up showing up from the NFC. If you were asking me, I was going to say the Seahawks. I think that would also be a ton of fun just to watch Seahawks, Bengals, 2 owners that you probably wouldn't see play each other a whole lot. All right, Dre, what am I talking about? Trey, we'll get the words together. My head is all over the place right now. We got a bunch of questions. Let's see if we can dig at some of these. Some of these are tough. It's like we don't have a ton of time to read these before we get the show going, and some of them are like, ooh, I may need time to go dig at that one. Tim is saying, now that the draft is over, who are you most excited to see? Who are your Rookie of the Year favorites? Tell me why it's not a quarterback. I mean, there's so many good quarterbacks that have come out. It's got to be one of these quarterbacks.
I talked about it on the draft show, and you smirked at me and questioned what I was thinking, but I definitely think my rookie running back is making a run for it. I mean, in 2 weeks, he's got 6 touchdowns. Yeah, he's on pace for what? An OMFL record of 48 rushing touchdowns this season? Something along that lines? If that keeps pace, I don't know how you don't put that in the Rookie of the Year conversation. Defensively, I have to also go to Minnesota because we all wondered what they were going to do, and they went corner of the first overall pick. If he's not the favorite, you have to be going, why did he go with him at number 1 and not trade down?
Yeah, there's so many good players, and this draft was unpredictable in a lot of positions, and I think it could go a variety of different ways. I just know the sexy places that it is, and so I'm going to stick with the quarterback. I mean, we've got a couple. We got the guy... Vasily Drastic, I don't even know if that's how you would say this. The rookie quarterback for the Browns. I mean, he's already got 4 touchdowns and 1 interception on the year. You've got a couple of other guys here. Brian Sherrod for the Raiders. I'm trying to find the guy for... I just had him. Where'd he go? Here he is, Clyde Quaker. What a name, huh? He's already got 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. I think I love seeing the rookie quarterbacks because when teams find their quarterback, they tend to play better. They get more wins. And we see some of these teams like the Raiders, like the Broncos, they start to compete. And when those teams begin to compete, then the whole league as a whole, the competition raises. And so I think that's going to be a ton of fun. Joker says, new season, who's going to be the surprise team in the AFC and the NFC? And then who's going to be the MVP? Let's start with the MVP first. I think that might be the easier of the 2 questions. Who's going to be your MVP, not named your new rookie quarterback or running back?
He ain't gonna be MVP. He's the backup. He ain't getting that. He ain't getting them yards. Them yards are going to get. He's just finishing on track. I'd have to probably go with. I think the MVP this season will probably be Tua Tagovailoa. I think.
Really?
I think Moss has got it in his head that he can't be overly aggressive as he has been.
Wait. Tua's now with the Red Dragons.
Oh, right.
Massimo has his import quarterback, which is
That's Hitchens.
Hitchens. That's it.
That's right. There. Okay, hold on. I finite process. I just played him. I just picked him off 5 times. What the heck's wrong with me? Well, that brings into questions. How do I see things going out then?
While you think I do like Hitchens, I do think that if he is able to get those interceptions down, which so far he has, we're only 1 game deep. But I'm going to go ahead and say I think it's going to be Parker Colt. I do think the Falcons are going to get it figured out. This guy is unstoppable. He is unbelievable. I wish I could have made the deal for him. I'd have been in La La Land long time ago and still have my first round draft pick this past season. Like, this guy is unbelievable, and I think he's going to put up unbelievable numbers now that he's with Maniac for an entire season. Maniac knows how to play really well with quarterbacks, and he's going to continue to play. Parker Colt is going to be my MVP.
You know, this might play into the whole Rookie of the Year aspect now I'm looking at this. I'm definitely going to say it's Vasilevsky.
Yeah.
Vasilevsky Drastic. I think that's the front runner for MVP at this point. I mean, 350 yards, 4 touchdowns, and only threw 1 pick. That's not a bad look.
Yeah, that percentage is a little low, and I think you're going to see that with rookie quarterbacks. Who is your surprise AFC and NFC team?
I think the surprise team in the AFC, it's going to be Truth. I think this is the year he's finally going to put it together and make a run for a playoff spot. Does he make it far in the playoffs? That's going to depend on how well he finds and puts his pieces to the puzzle. Surprise team in the NFC, I got to go with the Vikings. You know, that are coming off arguably should be a winless season if you don't count the computer victory. You don't expect them to rebound and be a playoff team. I strongly think that they have a chance to surprise a lot of people because he's an unknown. And I think that's going to give him the advantage to make a run for a wild card spot or even push me for the division.
Surprise NFC team. I'm taking low-hanging fruit. I'm taking Joker. That's so low-hanging fruit, but I'm going to take it anyway. I think he's finally got out of his own head about Kyler Murray. He's got his quarterback. He's going to be rocking and rolling. He's putting up points. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people this year. I think what happens here, and I think this is just a general blanket statement, is guys go into a game looking at someone's last record and not knowing the full context of how good or bad of a player they are, and they think they're going to win that game. They get their butt handed, and it's the sliders. Oh, it's this, or I'm going to suck, or whatever. And it's like, no, you just ran up against a really good team that's actually playing well now. My surprise AFC team, I'm taking the Denver Broncos. The last time he had a rookie quarterback that fit his style, he made it all the way to that OMFL Bowl, and I think he's going to do it again. I don't know that he's going to make it to the OMFL Bowl this year. He's not my pick to do that, but I do think he's going to surprise some teams. He's going to compete there in the AFC, and I do think that we see the Broncos in the playoffs next season. Cincyberg, this is one of your favorite questions because you've been talking about him a few times. New Vikings owner over under 6.5 wins as a first-time coach in the OMFL. So Mr. Bill in New York, or Bill Nee as people think that his name is, but it is Bill in New York, over under 6.5 wins. What do you think, Trey?
I'm taking the over on that. I feel like he's going to capitalize on a very interesting schedule. He's going up against the Patriots team this week that got blown out. That would give him 2 wins on the season. You've got a Dragons team that's not completely checked in, and a Packers team that's not completely checked in. You wouldn't, if you managed to sweep both those, that's 6 wins right there. I definitely feel he can find a way to slip in 1 or 2 more games there. And I said, I feel like he has the ability, run for a playoff spot.
That was my thought process. I think just happenstance is going to create a place where he can win more than 6.5 games just for the other things that are happening within your own division. And I think he is a good player. I mean, he hung up 45 points in week number 1. He's got a lot of talent on that team. And I think he is going to be able to figure out how to make that team win over 6.5 games. Twinkie says, who had the best draft and your preseason Super Bowl winners are? Let's do preseason Super Bowl winners. I had in mind Bengals versus Seahawks. I'm going to take the Seahawks to win their first ever Super Bowl just because, I just want to pick something different. I'm tired of picking the same thing every single year. I'm taking the Seahawks in OMFL Bowl number 107. Who's your winner for OMFL Bowl this year?
I have it Bills Cowboys, and I think we talked on the draft show, and I think it's proven that he's extra motivated to try and outdo D Money for once, and I think that's going to be enough for D Wayne to get the dub.
Who do you think had the best draft? I do miss the Daddy League breakdown of all the draft. Now, Neon Sports does do a few little things. But in your opinion, you and I talked about it a little bit. Who had the best draft?
I think we have to go and talk about the Giants in this aspect. We were questioning it on the show why they weren't drafting quarterback, and he told us he's got plans. Well, he's built a young team, and he ended up going and getting Dak Prescott to lead the charge. I think if you can build all those pieces, you've got a very young team that can be very competitive.
I think you got to mention Seahawks and Patriots as well. I think both of them had solid drafts with the picks that they had, but I think very underratedly, the Red Dragons had a great draft. He went out and made a couple of moves, got some pieces, and I think he hit some solid draft picks on those pieces. He was able to bring in some pieces that are going to need to develop. Now, we'll have to see if he's got the energy, time to put into developing them. And so maybe we don't see the effects of that great draft this season, but I do think you're going to see it when it comes to the entirety of Madden 25. Bronco Man, based on the draft and free agency, give me one team who made the playoffs last year that ends up missing them this year, and then one team that missed the playoffs last year that ends up making them. So AFC or NFC, one team that made it that's going to miss it, and one team that missed it that you think will make it.
I think the team that that's going to miss it is going to be the Dragons. There's stuff that's lying there that's going to affect him.
Yeah.
It's to the point where she's going to miss out in the playoffs. He's already down to an 0-2 hole. That's not a good start. Obviously, there's still a lot of time left. We've got 15 more games left for him to play. That's enough time to dig himself out and whatnot. But I feel like that's the one thing, especially in the NFC, that we talked about, where there's multiple divisions that have 2 or 3 candidates to play for the wildcard spot. That's the one guy that's going to, fall out of that list. In terms of team that will make it, didn't. I'm gonna say the Ravens. You know what? I think Nipples is gonna get checked back in, and whether the Crews takes him out for however long or not, I think he's gonna find himself a way to make it into the playoffs.
I like that pick. That's a fun pick. One team that didn't make it that will make it, give me the Chargers. I think with Herbert and that talent, there's just too much talent there. If Pepper is able to keep his focus and just stick to the plan, I do think that he's going to make a run there. You and I both like him in that division as well. And then one team that made the playoffs that will not make it, Cardinals also is going to be on my list, but I feel like I've already picked that plate all the way clean. One team that made it that will not make it, man, it's so lazy of me to say Jets or Steelers, because I think both of them are actually going to make it. But if I had to pick, I'd say the Jets, just because brand new quarterback, he's going to have to figure out some things for Wilson. Can he get Wilson developed enough to where he's not in such a larger hole, he can't overcome that and make a run into the playoffs? I think he does. But for sake of the show, I'm going to go ahead and take the Jets. Mr. Shocks fan, he says, he was talking about me. He said, I said something interesting on a live draft, so that they have something to the effect that drafting hidden gem players is overrated. Why do I think that? This is my personal opinion, because it's just development. If they're a good player, they're going to be good players. And if they're not good players, even if they're hidden gem, they're going to be much harder to get to be good players. Now, when I think the difference is what you consider a good player or not a good player. I think there are players with not great overall that are maybe a hidden development who have very important stats that you can pull from, and you can pull and build on a foundation of good throwing power or high strength or high hit power, something that you can build from, and so you're able to get that player very good. They come to you with already great speed stats or change of direction stats or acceleration stats. And vice versa. If they're hidden gem and they have an 86 throw-in power, guess what, homie? It's not going to be a good player. I don't care how hidden he is. He's going to stay hidden on your bench is where he's going to stay. If he comes to you as an 82 speed running back, an 83 speed wide receiver, I don't care how hidden gem they are. They're just not going to be good. It's overrated, especially with focus players. I think that you can develop depending on how good of a coach you are and how well you play with them, depending on the position. I just think it becomes overrated when guys start bragging about 6 of my 7 draft picks were hidden development. But if 3 of them suck and they're just not good players, it doesn't really matter if they're hidden or not. So that's just my own personal concept. You have any feelings one way or the other when it comes to hidden? Let me just say before I turn it over to you, if you had to choose between hidden or not hidden, I mean, of course you want hidden, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. I'm just saying it's a bit of an overrated, overinflated stat to be bragging about.
To brag about it at the draft is absolutely atrocious. However, if they come out to be an X Factor or superstar development, while we're still using abilities, that's a different story. Having a player with abilities does play a little bit of a factor that they can be bad and still benefit. That's just how those abilities work. If you put the right ability set, the dude could be a completely awful player and dominate. It's Madden stupidity, in my opinion. So to brag about it at the draft is bad. If they turn out to be superstar X Factors, then you have a little bit, bragging rights.
I love the questions. I never want to say things that make it feel like I don't appreciate the time that goes into the questions, because I do. I do think that some of these questions, though, we're just saying the same question in different ways of phrasing it. So this one I feel like we've already kind of done, but I do see your point, Bill, and so I'm going to ask it. So name one team from each conference that you think built a solid foundation in season 106 and is ready to take the next step in 107, whether that's making the playoffs, conference championship, OMFL Bowl, whatever the next step means for them. I think for me, it's the Vikings, and that comes with a bit of an asterisk. New owner, so you just never know, but I felt like the Vikings came with a really good foundation that he just was able to build upon as we moved into season 107, having an owner with high draft picks that could build upon those. And then if we look at the AFC, there's so many good teams over there, but I kind of tend to want to lean towards what the Chargers did. A team with already a franchise quarterback, some skilled positions. He had a really solid draft, and I think he has the ability to build upon one of those. And I don't think that either one of those mean championship or bust. I don't think either one of those even mean playoffs or bust, but I do think we see both of those teams play better than they did last season. What do you think? A team that built a foundation in season 106 that's ready to take the next step?
I definitely think the AFC, you have to go with the Chargers. It's just, Pepper was sitting back trying to figure out what he had to do, and then he went out and executed in the offseason. The NFC side, I think the Falcons. Yes, he's in his own head. He needs to pull his head out of his butt and stop thinking the season's over. But he has a solid foundation. I think he just built upon it, and he was either a wild card team or just outside of it. I can't remember. But I feel like he has the pieces there that he can, with a full season of Parker Colton, understanding all of his motions and whatnot, and understanding his team, has the ability to push further into the playoffs.
We've seen teams like the Steelers and the Jets already have, I think both of those teams combined 3 losses. We see teams like the Commanders with a loss underneath their belt already. The Dragons are at 0-2, Dolphins 0-1, Falcons and 0-1. Maniac asked, do we think that there has been any kind of shift in power in season 107?
There's always going to be a shift in power. Teams will age out. Teams will lose star players to free agency. Especially with how we set things up. We gave you one shot, and if you failed that shot, you either used your franchise tag or you let them walk. I was a really interesting dynamic, not knowing what was going to happen come free agency. I don't think we can say that the power shift is officially there, but you're definitely seeing some teams that are finding their groove right away. If you were going into the season and you asked me if, even just from my experience, that the Dragons would be 0-2 and I'd be 2-0, I'd have told you no just off last season. I figured that both of us would be 2-0. Me being 1-1 because of just spontaneous play. I definitely figured that would be the case, but it's too early to tell.
Yeah, I think it's way too early to tell. I don't sense a shift in power. I do think the floor has been raised, and I think that's a good thing. I definitely don't think that anything is shift back and forth. I just think the floor has come up. We're seeing an influx of rookie quarterbacks that could really help the OMFL and some of the competitive advantage. Kevin's next question: what rookie do you see having the most impact for his team? And we know how you feel about your running back. So outside of your own running back, who do you think is going to have the most impact for their team? There's a lot of really good players. We've talked about the quarterbacks. We've touched on the cornerback for the Vikings. There's probably more players that we could mention that you and I probably don't even know their names. It's just so many players to keep in tabs with. But just off the top of your head, who do you think is going to have the biggest impact?
Well, you think that I would talk about my running back, but he wasn't even the first rookie on my team that came to my mind. But I'm not going with my team on this one. I definitely think that we mentioned him earlier, the Browns quarterback.
Yeah.
Vassal dress. He did okay with Dorian Thompson Robinson last year, so it surprised me that he was going for a quarterback in the draft. And I mean, props to him. He's found something.
Yeah, that's exactly where my head went. And I feel like maybe it's a bit of a lazy pick because he's a quarterback, but I do think that he is a guy to think about. The Broncos, again, I've been talking about the Broncos a lot today, but I do think that the Broncos with their quarterback are going to be able to figure some things out, and he's going to be an impactful guy. Man, it's so hard. There's got to be a receiver, right? There's always going to be a receiver. Let me see if I can just see if anybody's just kind of at the tippy top already. But there's always a receiver or two that come out of nowhere that end up, making a massive impact. Daniel Bayer, a tight end for the San Diego Chargers, he's already got 6 for 95 on this season. I'm trying to see if I can see anybody else. Greg McCoy, a tight end for the Seattle Seahawks, 3 for 93. It always makes me want to throw up a little bit when I say tight ends first, when I'm looking for a rookie wide receiver, but it kind of is what it is. You're going to see some impactful tight ends, clearly, and some impactful wide receivers come out of this draft. Kevin asked his last question. What do you think? What team do you feel is most improved this season? I think we've beat that one up to death. Cardinals are going to be probably my pick. I think you're going to see the vast majority of improvement come from him and his team. Any other teams that maybe we haven't touched on that you think we could see a big improvement from?
I mean, essentially going 17-0 minus Justin Jefferson cheesing the hell out of me in week 17 or 8. I think it's the Vikings. They had one win all season. They're already at one win.
Yeah, and when we said they'll win more than 6.
How is that not vast improvement in being the most improved? You were literally the worst team, and
that's
now
a great point.
You're already improving.
Tim made a great comment before I get to our last question from Denver, which I can't answer because I had no picks. But Tim said, I would rather have a normal dev that fits my system when we were talking about normal and hidden devs than a hidden dev that doesn't fit my scheme. Tim, you're so on point. I think not that mixture of scheme fit with the type of player and the development is such a magical mixture. It's a great point by you, Tim. Bruce, last question that I'm going to give to you because I didn't have any picks, but were there any players that you had your eye on that went either right before you or a couple of picks before you that you were hoping was going to fall to you?
No, there wasn't. I really wasn't into draft in where it was, I don't care what's there, I'm taking the best thing that I've started at the positions I needed. So players, I didn't really have that aspect of looking at certain guys at certain spots.
Yeah, and I just didn't have picks. And so I love that kind of live reaction as we're all playing. And you're like, oh, he's falling. He's right there. One more. And then it's like, oh, he's gone. Dang it, what happened? But I think also majority of us, 1 week into the season, you can't even remember those players' names. You know, maybe if it's somebody in your division that you can remember, but most of the time we can't even remember because those players are gone. Trey, what a show. It from real life happening and needing to pause to complete predictions to a very full mailbag. We're going to have Denbrew and OMFL News back next week with us, he said, so I can't wait to do it. Give me one final closing thought as we put a bow on this show.
Yeah, just to feed off what Tim is saying about having, the normal dev that fits the scheme. I think I have that perfect player with, as I mentioned on the draft show, with Doug Glenn. That man was a normal dev that I drafted, was really kind of but he was a perfect fit for my scheme, and I made the best out of it. I think I had him either superstar dev by season's end, and by the time we got to the actual season, he was already an X Factor. It's all about finding the right pieces at the right places. Yeah. You don't always need the special development to increase it. If you have a great player, he's going to earn those dev trait missions, and at the end of the season, if he's played well, he's going to earn it via his stat line.
I agree with you. One final thought for me as I put a bow on this, and it's going to be sharing a message that I read that gives me internal dialogue that I will share outside of that internal dialogue so that we can all take from it as we so choose. And that is, what we have found here is that winning is contagious. And when you win, you get addicted to it and you want to win more. And then you want to show that you deserve to be up there with the D-Moneys and the Denbrews and the top players, the Kobe's, right? And some of us are really driven by that. And it becomes so addicting that the slightest stumble causes you to get in your own head and either get really negative towards yourself or get really negative in our chat and in our CFM. And I think that is something we can learn by. And what this person had said is that when someone loses, matter of fact, I'm going to kind of bring it up here because the way they put it was hilarious, but also there was a lot of truth to it. And I was like, and I'm talking to me because I can be the world's worst. I'm no better than anyone else. I'm human like everybody else, and I can fall down these kind of rabbit holes that we don't really mean. And it said, step 1, lose a game that you thought you would win. Step 2, spend hours watching film looking for anything close to an FPR break. If found, go to step 4. If not, go to step 3. Step 3, find excuses like sliders, momentum, or just EA effing up to blame. Move to step 4. Step 4, cry and chat. And it's true. It's funny, but it can be true. And I just wish that's something that we could all improve on. There's one missing there that Nate's go to that I've worked really hard not to say, and that I should retire and I'm too old for this game. And it's like, let's just have fun. Let's just make content. And I came up against the buzzsaw in week 1 and I got my butt handed to me. It's okay. I'm going to get another one and I'm going to go play again. And I'm going to play again. And even if I win 1 game or 0 games, there's going to be a draft and that's going to be fun. And we're making content. And I just wish we could have more fun enjoying it. The game is the game, and it is what it is, and it's never going to be perfect. And I just wish that we could keep the negative emotions and energy out of the chat. So it's something I think that we could all kind of do better at. And I appreciated the message because it did make me laugh and chuckle. And I think when those upper echelons, those people who win a lot, or maybe you don't win a lot, but you won last season, when you say those things, the way it makes people who had terrible seasons, who kept their mouths shut and who still produce content and who are still here and still all in and still bringing good energy, how it makes them feel, and I just wish we would think about that a little bit more. Guys, today has been an eventful day and I still have a full afternoon ahead of me. So I'm going to go make sure my wife is good, go make sure the grandbaby's still feeling good. Thank you, Trey, for being flexible and coming to do this with me. Thank you guys for hopping on for a second show. It's always our longest show. I love you. We'll see you on the next one. All right. Peace.